fascinating happening as we speak. The biggest medium that we've ever created, television, and the fastest growing medium, social media, have collided. And the collision looks something like this. So this is Scott on Twitter tweets, "Wow, Pete's smug arrogance knows no bounds, pound Mad Men." We look at the time code and we know that this was tweeted while Mad Men was airing on TV. Samantha on Facebook posts that she's had a long day, she's relaxing with some wine and anticipating the Bachelorette season finale. Simon on Twitter tweets, "Normally I would skip the ads, but if the ad is a Nike football one, heck no." From just a couple of days ago, Pam on Twitter retweets the following: "Obama will not look at Romney while Romney speaks. Why?" Question mark. A live tweet as Romney and Obama are debating. So this habit of tweeting and posting while watching live TV is growing. So these are some numbers just to give you a sense of the scale. This is quarterly growth over the last year in terms of millions of publicly available tweets and posts about what's airing on TV. Interesting number, roughly approaching 10% of the US population that watches TV is now publicly, visibly talking about what they're watching while they're watching. This is mainly Twitter data. There's perhaps another twofold, maybe another 25 to 50 million behind Facebook that we can't see, so Bluefin just looks at the public data. And what's happening in a nutshell is television is driving this massive live conversation about what is on TV, and all of that conversation is affecting people's decisions for what to tune into, and perhaps more fundamentally, it's changing how people interpret what they're watching. You're not just hearing what Romney has to say, you're reading what people are thinking about what he's saying as you're taking in the first screen. And this feedback loop, this real-time massive audience feedback loop, is also rewiring the television industry and, in a sense, turning television for the first time into a kind of massive interactive medium. So this is what Bluefin does. I'm going to show you some data from our database. This is a sample of about 20,000 people. Cotton candy-like network of publicly available links between friends and followers. So this is a sort of public cut of the social graph. And then we construct a second graph. Each node here is showing an actual telecast or an ad that has aired on a slice of TV data that we analyzed. And you'll notice that there's a very fine structure of relationships between programs and ads. So Bluefin's actually created the most complete real-time data feed of what's on TV in the US. We track a couple of million national ads on television real-time. We marry that with data of what programs are on and create a complete, what we call, content graph of TV. And then the key third piece, and this is again real data we're looking at, each link is showing where our algorithms have parsed a tweet or a post, decided it's about a piece of content on TV, and drawn a link. So if we see a node up here that's a person, a descending line says we believe they made a comment about some piece of programming. So we call this database the TV genome, 25 million people. We have indexed to date 1.2 million shows going back to the beginning of 2011. And we're adding, so in September we added just over 100 million new links. So a way to interpret this graph is in the same way that Google spidered the web and built up all of the link structure of how websites point to one another. We spidered, on one hand, legacy data that's always been out there, the broadcast television data, and connected it to the publicly available data on the social graph and created this link structure of how the US audience and television are linked. So if our internet connection here holds, we can take a quick cruise through the data so you can get a sense of what this looks like. We're looking here at some live data. The yellow line here marks real time. If we zoom in, we can see that baseball right now has 14,000. There's a game on as we speak, and on TBS. And if I click on this piece of the program guide, we see that the game started airing at 5:30 Eastern Time. And there's this volumetric graph, minute by minute, of what people are saying, all the way up to real time about this show that's on TV. And as we scroll down, we get an analysis of what it is people are saying. This is unedited, so this is really data in the wild, and we can get a sense of what topics, what events are actually driving conversation about this game. We see something clearly happen here. We can zoom in, go down, and see the comments. I have no idea what we're going to see here. Must have been a play that got people fired up. So let's go back. So this is every 2 minutes, we're pulling in whatever conversation. You see, we just went from 14,000 to 15,000 and change. And as we scroll down, Sex and the City rerun, 3,000 comments, all about the Benjamins, 2,500. So here are the conversations occurring throughout the US at this very moment about pretty much every program on TV. And as we then start looking at this data back in time, we can look at, for example, the rankings for the last week. And we actually had the debate, the presidential debate, generated over 11 million comments. So almost 5 million people collectively generated 11 million comments. And we measure the spread of this social amplification. So these are kind of, think of each person who's watching TV now deciding to selectively rebroadcast elements of what they find interesting. The reach of that social audience was almost 5 billion impressions. So 5 billion tweets and posts could have been read in response to the presidential debate. We click in, we see what people are saying about the debate. 11 million comments. We get a quick breakdown here. We see Romney, 46% over Obama. I got to be very careful I don't know where this is being broadcast. And let's not go further right now. Very risky to do live demos here. So quite literally, what we're looking at is a kind of enormous focus group in the wild, untainted, people talking to each other, pushing around their expressions of what they think about what they're seeing. And last thing I'll show you here is we can go back in time and interactively pull up 1.2 million telecasts. So it's all the data is on tap. And as we do, whoops. We can get a kind of ranking. So here we see NBC at the top over the last year and a half, Olympics, the Super Bowl, The Voice, America's Got Talent. So we can see rank ordered what programs on TV are actually driving the conversation. So what that lets us do is create a new way to measure TV. So where Nielsen measures how many people are watching TV, or to be more precise, what they're actually measuring is how long TVs are tuned in, whether a person's in front of the screen or not. We're getting this human signal now that's growing, that's telling us where people are tuned and attentive enough that they're actually talking about what they're seeing. So we've actually launched a service last year. We now have 43 of the biggest broadcast and cable networks that are using our data to complement the Nielsen data to understand engagement around programs. So let me switch gears and tell you about sort of the business side of this. One of the reasons that there's a lot of interest in social TV is from an advertiser perspective. I just want to give you a little bit of a glimpse into what all this data means for an advertiser. So take all the people who've ever talked about Mad Men, and we call that a segment. That's all the people who we have linked to that show because at some point they talked about it, like the person we saw at the beginning. And now imagine we could find all the people who talk about fitness, and I'll show you in a second how we do that. If you talk about working out, you talk about going to the gym, we can build a segment, a group of people who've publicly let it be known that they're into fitness. And then we can do an overlap analysis and ask how many people live across, are common to both of these segments. So at some point they've talked about Mad Men, some other context they've talked about fitness. And we can compute what we call the affinity between these two groups. If there is less overlap, the affinity is low. If there's more overlap, the affinity is high. This gets interesting, because now we're not just counting how many people talk about a show, but we can go and find fitness enthusiasts. By the way, notice the ebb and flow of talk about working out. Tuesdays turn out to be, and Mondays, a good time to be thinking about working out. Saturdays, Sundays, not so much so. Okay? These are thousands of comments about working out. And we can see what they're talking about. Yoga is ranking pretty high. Going for a run, breakfast in the gym if it's open, etc. We go over to the affinity view, and we take this segment, which is actually a couple of million strong, and use it as a lens to look across over 200,000 programs on TV. We can see which networks have the most fitness enthusiasts engaged around their programming. We can drill down and find specific shows. So from an advertiser point of view, just kind of give you a glimpse that all of this publicly available data opens up ways of understanding audiences and where you can find. So there we go, rank ordered, hundreds of shows in terms of their affinity to being into fitness. Just a little bit deeper dive to give you a sense of how this all comes together. Sundrop, a small sparkling beverages brand that launched a national campaign this year. In the bar graph, you're seeing every ad they've run on US national TV. The color, the height is telling us how many ads. So we see in total they had 6 ads that ran 4,500 times. And the color tells us which ad. You have to have a certain appreciation of advertising to take in this one. Silly guy dancing to catchy music turns out to be an effective way to drive conversation. So what we're seeing in blue down here is a response of thousands of people talking in real time as they watch this ad on TV. And as we see, the ad keeps running, conversation dies out. Suddenly we see a burst of new conversation. You look up, you see that a new creative, a new ad started running with a new character. You look over here, this yellow is a third creative. It's a woman. His soulmate generates no conversation on its own. So again, we're getting this notion of a focus group that's out there that's telling, in this case, advertisers what they think about their ads and which ads are actually funny, which ones are not. We can actually go and see what's being said about these commercials. Someone wants to be in an ad, someone who's just saying they like it and they find it funny. But meanwhile, from the brand's point of view, that's 196 people who just read about the Sundrop brand who may not have otherwise heard about it. So again, there's this amplification effect that's taking place. So last thing I want to take you through is, so that's what it means for advertisers for TV networks. We've been doing some experiments in closing this loop back with mass media itself. So we formed a partnership with ABC News. This is a clip from the end of last year during the GOP presidential debates. Christiane Amanpour will take us through a sort of minute segment of the analysis the morning after one of the debates, just to give you a sense of how this data can actually feed back into the conversation.
Even as the candidates sparred on stage at last night's debate, social media was exploding with real-time reaction. To take the pulse of the Twitterverse, we teamed up with Bluefin Labs, a social TV analytics company based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They spent the night combing Twitter, and here's what they found. These animations powered by Bluefin Labs. Look at all the tweets about the ABC News debate. Some 236,000 of them. So which candidate got the most mentions? Mitt Romney with 25%. And it was largely brought on by this moment. Watch.
You know, I'm just saying, you were for individual mandates, my friend.
You know what? You've raised that before, Rick. And you're simply wrong.
It was true then.
No.
It's true now.
Rick, I'll tell you what. $10,000 bucks? $10,000 bet?
I'm not in the betting business,
Oh,
but
okay.
I'll show
Okay.
you.
That moment triggered a tweet frenzy. This graph shows the volume of debate commentary on Twitter. You can see the spike in yellow when Romney made that bet. The Fix commented, quote, "I bet you 10,000 Romney would like to take back that line right about now." And you can see how that was retweeted far and wide. And so that's how the Romney bet reverberated online.
So what's amazing is that moment that she commented on, we can go, so we call these remarkable moments, whether it's someone talking about an ad or someone talking about a line in a debate, and go and analyze the people behind those comments. So the same way we did affinity analysis for advertising, we can go and find that public transportation commuters, parents, beer drinkers, all over-index in terms of commenting on that particular moment, that $10,000 bet. And in converse, you have museum goers, wine drinkers, hardcore gamers that under-index. So for every moment on TV, we're able to take any reaction and analyze who is behind it. So just to wrap up, going back to the TV genome, what we're really seeing here as we use big data to stitch together this complete picture of how TV and the audience is linked, we're seeing new structures. So here is an example of a virtual living room, a group of people who are physically apart but actually watching one piece of content together. And we can see these cliques as they form in real time. Or we can identify a very interesting kind of influencer, someone who talks a lot about TV, a kind of media critic, and has lots of followers. So no matter what your interest, if you are investing in TV, that's probably someone you want to be able to find and understand. And finally, it's sometimes the mass media that is driving all the social media. This data, by the way, we're looking at is all at scale. This is the State of the Union address from actually 2 years ago, so some older data. And at scale, we see literally a country burst in a conversation in reaction to the president. And so I think that there really is a huge transformation underway as TV becomes two ways, and whether you're looking at how campaigns right now are being run, how marketers will do their jobs in the future, and how fundamentally I believe we'll see shifts in the nature of content on television. It's all being driven by this collision of fast and big media. Thank you.